I'll never forget the shock of running into my husband Kent at our best friend Sarah's baby shower. It seemed Sarah didn't know that Kent and I were married. Anyway, the idea the two of them had a child together. That was beyond belief. You two look so happy together, I'm almost jealous. Oh dear, to be the odd one out in our trio of friends. Sarah, Kent, I hope you guys find happiness, no matter what. Sarah nodded with a full-faced smile, while Kent did awkwardly in return. I knew the truth. I knew Kent was the kind of man who'd say, pregnancy is not an illness, so don't be lazy. He wouldn't lift a finger to help a pregnant woman. To think he'd cheat on his wife, with our close friend no less, was beyond comprehension. Asking for forgiveness? That was out of the question. I decided it was time for him to lose everything. My name is Lucy. I'm a hairdresser in a small town. This is where I was born and raised. It's not as flashy as the city, but it's a comfortable place to live. The sense of community here is just right, making it a great place to call home. Kent and I were high school classmates. Back then, our friend Sarah and us were known as the inseparable trio, always together. Especially Kent and I were the class's official couple. Whenever someone asked, "Where's Kent right now?" I could answer precisely, often teased, "You're going to make a great wife someday." The third member of our trio, Sarah, was always plugged into her earphones, listening to British music or the radio, dreaming of England. She was one of the top students in our class. Sarah achieved her dream, attending university in England, and after graduating, we only exchanged messages a few times a year. After graduation, I went to vocational school and became a hairdresser. Since my family owned a beauty salon, I started working there. As for Kent, he joined his family's business after attending a local university. That company sold beauty products like shampoo. Interestingly, the company was a business partner of my family's salon. The connection was another reason our relationship was often the subject of playful comments. Kent was reserved, not much of a talker, the opposite of talkative me. Yet strangely, we got along well, and our relationship from high school led to a marriage without a formal proposal. We bought a house in the city, started a new life in a spacious home. Sometime after our marriage, I became pregnant. Overjoyed to be carrying Kent's child, I happily shared the news that night. "Kent, guess what? I'm pregnant." I was eagerly waiting for his joyous reaction, but what I got was anything but enthusiastic. "Oh, is that so? Aren't you happy?" Silently, he started fiddling with his mobile phone, searching for due dates and birth stories. "The baby will be here next year. Make sure you wrap up your work by then." "Is that all you have to say?" "What else is there to say?" "I guess nothing." I was honestly disappointed with his attitude, but soon, I found myself in a situation that left no room for such concerns. My first pregnancy was tougher than I had imagined. I used to work full-time, but sudden bouts of illness and doctor's appointments often made it difficult. Reluctantly, I decided to take maternity leave earlier than usual and focus on my health. However, Kent was unsympathetic to my condition. He searched the standard duration of maternity leave on his mobile phone and confronted me with it. "Aren't you taking off too early? Our income will soon decrease." "My job is physically demanding, and everyone's health conditions are different. Besides, my mom said she'd handle the salon while I'm away." "Pregnancy isn't an illness, so don't be coddled. If you're like this, our child won't amount to much." He would even say such things, even though it's his child too. "If it's my child, it has to be excellent. You need to make an effort too. If you become a lazy housewife, I'll divorce you right away. You've been slacking off with the housework, haven't you? The meals are sloppy, and the house is a mess. I just can't manage it all right now. I have a limited diet. Can't you at least prepare your own meals?" In fact, he was completely reliant on me for household chores. Growing up in a family business, I was accustomed to housework from a young age. Whereas, it seemed he never had to lift a finger at home, thanks to his mother being so diligent. "Men in our family don't do housework." It was his mother Catherine's mantra, suggesting a belief that it was a woman's role. While I admired her dedication to household chores, it resulted in Kent being clueless about even basic tasks like laundry. That was a source of quiet frustration for me. As I was pondering how to discuss this with Kent, I suddenly needed to use the restroom. Those who've been pregnant might understand, but at that time, I needed to go quite often. Sorry, I need to use the restroom. Again? Aren't you getting a bit old for this? When the belly grows, bathroom breaks become more frequent. How disgraceful. You're always complaining about your health lately. It's like living with an old woman. He then started a long rant about his grievances. But I was desperate to use the restroom. And frankly, I was uncomfortable with his incessant complaints and old woman comparisons, and just wanted to leave. When he finally took a breath, I need to use the restroom, I managed to say. But he snapped, I'm not done talking yet. Somehow, I endured his lengthy tirade and rushed to the restroom at the last possible moment. How uncool. Behind me, his voice could be heard muttering. Initially, his calm and unflappable demeanor was what attracted me to him. However, since finding out about the pregnancy, it feels like everything is backfiring. Moreover, he compares me to various people he reads about online. That celebrity was back to work right after giving birth, and her figure was perfect too. You'll be the same, right? I don't know. Don't compare me to such incredible people so casually. You're both human, just give it a try. Don't disappoint me too much. Apparently, his expectations were ridiculously high. Besides, his information came from the internet, but he naively believed dubious facts. Every time we met, it led to such conversations, creating a tense atmosphere between us. Around the same time our baby was conceived, he started spending less time at home. Our arguments like the ones I just mentioned were one reason, but he also began going out at night or on weekends, claiming it was for work. That was not something we had seen in our life together before. He was the exact opposite of the increasingly popular image of a cooperative, involved father. One night, when he came home late, I decided to confront him. You've been busy with work lately, haven't you? I'm cultivating new clients. It's none of your business. But Kent, have you been drinking? This is my refreshment. Stop nagging. His voice was so loud it could be heard outside. Sure enough, I could smell the alcohol on his breath. You never had to drink after work before. What's going on? You wouldn't understand. Besides. Thus, his sneering began anew. You're just lazing around at home while I work every day. This isn't fair. I'm not lazing around. I'm quite busy preparing for the birth. That's no excuse to neglect the household chores. You don't even put on makeup anymore. It's like you're using pregnancy as an excuse to abandon your femininity. That's terrible. Holding back tears, I went to put his bag on the shelf, when something small fell to the floor with a clatter. What are they? Wireless earbuds? I picked them up casually and studied them closely. They were small, shaped like earrings, and in a cute pink color that many women would like. Don't touch my bag without permission. That's an invasion of privacy. I always do this. But Kent, you don't usually use earbuds, right? If they're lost, we should return them. That's for me to worry about. Just focus on your chores. Why can't you even manage that properly? His reaction was far too intense for just pointing out a lost item. As I was about to respond, I felt a dull impact in my abdomen. He had kicked me. Don't forget you're being provided for. Keep your unnecessary comments to yourself, or I'll have to rethink things. I couldn't grasp what had just happened to me. After he stormed off to his room, I sat on the floor in a daze, replaying the recent events. I couldn't see how I had done anything to deserve being kicked. I couldn't comprehend his reaction. The next day, just to be safe, I went to the hospital to check on my baby. I couldn't dare say my husband had kicked me, so I lied that I had fallen at home. Fortunately, there were no abnormalities with the baby, but the area where I was kicked was bruised and discolored. Amidst that, some good news arrived. My best friend Sarah had given birth. She had gone to university in England and I heard she settled there for work, but apparently, she had returned to the US. Ideally, I would have brought Kent along, reuniting the trio of friends after such a long time, but unfortunately, he was away on a business trip. Reluctantly, I went to congratulate her by myself. In the bright, sunlit hospital room, Sarah lay in bed, looking relieved. As I entered the room, she struggled to sit up. "It's been a while. Congratulations on your baby." "Thank you. I actually came back to the US about a year ago but couldn't get in touch, sorry. I'm just glad the baby is safely here." She looked more refined than when she was a student, more grown up. By her pillow, I noticed earbuds identical to the ones I found in Kent's bag. She seemed to notice my gaze. "Oh, these? They're my favorite. I lost one recently, but my honey found it for me." "Really? What's your husband like?" "Actually, we're not married yet." "You know what? The guy is." Her words were interrupted by a knock on the door. Entering the room was none other than Kent. I was so shocked, I couldn't speak. "You must be surprised. Actually, I'm dating Kent now." She seemed unaware that we were married. She smiled innocently before my eyes. "Hey, long time no see. How's it going?" Kent's shameless demeanor pushed my confusion to the max. It's a reunion of the trio. I started seeing Kent again after returning from England. But with all the paperwork, we haven't married yet. "I see. As you can tell, I'm also expecting a baby." I felt an overwhelming urge to reveal everything. But I paused, regaining a bit of calm. I had a baby in my womb. I had to protect my child and myself. I pondered the most effective way to handle this predicament. In the end, I decided to keep things peaceful for now. My husband is on a business trip right now. I really wanted to bring him along today. "That's a shame. I wanted to meet your husband. It's really unfortunate. But having a husband like yours who accompanies her must be infinitely better." "My husband doesn't help out at all." I secretly glared at Kent. He deliberately looked away. "You two look so happy together, I'm almost jealous." Oh dear, to be the odd one out in our trio of friends. "Sarah, Kent, I hope you find happiness, no matter what." Sarah nodded with a full-faced smile, while Kent did awkwardly in return. "By the way, this is a gift for the baby. I heard you can never have too many bibs, so I got these. I even got matching ones for my baby." "That's adorable, thank you. You must be excited about your baby too, Lucy. After a healthy delivery, we should all go out together." At the mention of all of us, Kent's shoulders twitched slightly. I pretended not to notice and continued smiling cheerfully. "Hey, let's take a photo while we're here. Sarah, hold the baby. And Kent, get in close." I captured the moment of Sarah holding the baby with Kent beside her in a photo. With a forced smile plastered on my face, I left the hospital room. Before I realized it, I was breathing heavily, my shoulders heaving. From beyond the door, I could hear Sarah's excited voice and Kent's low murmurs. Upon leaving the hospital, I hurried home. I opened my mobile phone and immediately contacted a real estate agent. "Yes, I know it's sudden, but I want to sell my house." "Yes, right away is fine. I want to complete the process quickly. Could you also refer me to a moving company?" I made arrangements to sell the house and contracted a moving company that the real estate agent recommended. Next, I called my in-laws. "Catherine? Due to some urgent matters with Kent, I'll be sending over some belongings. Don't be alarmed by the amount." Right, I had decided to erase the house I lived in, as if it never existed. Kent said he would be away on a business trip until the next day. He's probably planning to stay somewhere tonight. While part of me wanted to send the belongings directly to Catherine's house without warning, she wasn't to blame. At least I informed her. After finishing these tasks, I noticed incoming calls from Kent. In fact, since leaving the hospital, he had been calling incessantly. I ignored them and read a book. Then, a message came in. "Let's talk, just the two of us." What was there to talk about in that situation? Moreover, since the incident where he kicked my abdomen, a sense of caution towards him had sprouted in my mind. At that time, the caution had turned into suspicion, and I didn't even want to hear his voice. Once home, I immediately started packing. I entered his room and without hesitation began boxing up his belongings. Fortunately, it was the off-season for moving. I was able to sign up for a plan where the movers would help pack, making the shipping process smoother than expected. All that was left was to send my own belongings. After contacting my parents, they rushed over and the move was completed promptly. There was something I found in Kent's room. It was a partially completed divorce application. He was planning to leave me for Sarah and marry her. It seemed convenient, so I filled in the rest of the divorce application and decided to keep it safe. Just then, I received a call from Catherine.
Lucy, I knew you were sending some things over, but I had no idea it would be this much. What on earth happened?
The truth is, Kent has been having an affair. Do you remember Sarah from high school? It seems he has a child with her. I could sense her shock over the phone. Despite feeling sorry for her, I continued, I'm sorry, but I have proof. I'll send you a photo. I sent her the photo I took in the hospital room of Sarah, the baby, and Kent together.
I don't want to believe it, but it's true, isn't it?
I wish it wasn't. But it is. I'll be staying at my parents' house from tonight. She apparently tried to contact Kent after that, but couldn't reach him. When she asked if I knew where he might be, I unexpectedly replied that he was no longer family to me. She understood my determination from my response. That evening, I took my essentials and returned to my parents' house, sleeping peacefully in my old room. The next morning, Kent contacted me.
Hey! Our house is empty and there's a for sale sign up. What's going on?
Don't you understand? Your home isn't there anymore. For now, your belongings are at your parents' house. I'm changing the locks tomorrow, so coming back would be pointless.
What have you done? Let's talk, at least.
Fine. How about this afternoon at your parents' house? I'll contact your mother. I ended the call quickly and started preparing to go out. That afternoon, the involved parties gathered at my in-laws' house. Kent's parents, my parents, Kent, and me. Catherine's face was noticeably pale. Surprisingly, she was the first to speak.
Kent, is it true that you've been having an affair with your friend Sarah?
Affair? No, we just started dating later, that's all.
I don't want to hear excuses. And now there's a child involved.
Looks like we were just really compatible. The next moment, Catherine punched Kent.
What have you done? Lucy is carrying your child. How could you face her?
I had never seen the usually calm and elegant her like that. A trickle of blood ran from Kent's nose, but he seemed unaware.
Ouch. What are you doing? It's natural for a child to come from a loving relationship. How can you even say that?
I interrupted the parent-child argument. First of all, how did you end up dating Sarah?
I ran into her at the bus terminal while I was out on business. She had just returned to the US and was busy with a new job. She had a charm you didn't, Lucy.
That's not a reason to start a relationship, is it?
Ever since high school, I actually liked Sarah. But she was out of reach, so I settled for you.
I was speechless at his brazen words.
Meeting Sarah again and reminiscing made me realize she didn't have bad feelings for me. There's no reason to stop us now.
He had kept his marriage a secret from Sarah. When Sarah became pregnant soon after they started dating, he considered divorcing me. Around the same time, I became pregnant too. He reached that point without the courage to divorce or the determination to remarry.
How can you justify such selfishness? Aren't you ashamed of two-timing? Sarah and Lucy are completely different. Reuniting with Sarah made me realize how unsatisfied I was with Lucy. I plan to remarry Sarah and step up as a man. Don't be absurd. To think my son could do something like this, I'm so disappointed.
Catherine's anger knew no bounds.
If that's how you feel, our parent-child bond is over. You're also fired from the company. You're on your own from now on. That's fine by me.
Honestly, I was skeptical. Could Kent, who had only worked in a small family business, really handle another job?
You have no idea. The reason you could work till now is thanks to Lucy's salon.
What?
Lucy's salon? That small-town shop doesn't significantly impact my performance. The only reason you had any success was because her shop promoted our products. Ungrateful.
Listening silently, my parents announced they would cease business with Kent's company.
It can't be helped. I'll start my own business. I'm still young, I can learn. With Sarah returning to work soon after giving birth, our new life is secure. I muttered into my mobile phone, so he says. Suddenly, a loud voice echoed, "Are you stupid?" From the beginning of the discussion, I had been on a video call with Sarah. If I knew you were married to Lucy, I wouldn't have been involved. It's like I'm betraying her too. I'm speechless at your naivety. Frankly, you lack talent as a business person. Why are you there? I got in touch with Lucy and decided to join this discussion. I'm glad I heard everything. I never want to see you again. Wait, don't leave me. Why should I be with someone as awful as you? I'll raise the baby alone, just don't show your face. Of course, I will expect child support. Realizing remarriage was off the table, Kent suddenly turned to me, almost pleading. Lucy, I was wrong. Let's forget everything and raise our child together. Continue this marriage with such a despicable man? No way. I can't forget the terrible things you've done. The shock of seeing he appear in Sarah's hospital room was fresh in my mind. Don't spoil the mood. Isn't your kindness your best quality? Unable to give up, he was staring intently at me. His mouth agape, his nose bloodied and clotted, he was a picture of disgrace. I shook my head slowly. Just because things didn't work out with Sarah, you think you can come back to me? That's too convenient. But what about you? You'll struggle too, won't you? How do you plan to raise the child? I have skills, and I'm much better off without a husband like you. I'm not foolish enough to cling to a foolish man. My parents had discussed it with me on the previous day, and they assured me of their full support. Being in customer service, they have good contacts with reputable law firms. I presented the divorce application I had found in his drawer. As you can see, the divorce application is all set. All that's left is to file it. Let's quickly settle the compensation and child support. Wait, I have to pay both Sarah and you. Of course. I am your wife, after all. But don't think I'll overlook any negligence towards Sarah's situation either. I have a lawyer ready. He was at his wit's end. At that moment, I felt an unprecedented pain in my abdomen. Oh my, it hurts. My labor had started right at that moment. The discussion was obviously adjourned, and I was rushed to the local hospital by my parents. From there, everything happened so quickly. Exhausted from the stress of the discussion and the labor, I fell into a deep sleep in the hospital bed. Even when the nurses woke me up occasionally, I barely opened my eyes. After being discharged and returning home with my baby, I asked my parents about the current situation. My mother, as a hairdresser, had subtly spread rumors about Kent among her clients. Our customers are mostly housewives. A word or two from her was exaggerated and spread quickly throughout the town. On the other hand, Kent tried to start an internet sales company, something he was always interested in. He seemed to have underestimated personal connections, seeking solace in the internet. However, his capabilities did not match the power of word of mouth. The rumors prevented him from finding a bank to finance his business, and it failed to take off. He tasted the bitter consequences of underestimating the local community network he had belittled. There was another thing that damaged him. The video call with Sarah. She had used another camera to record the entire discussion. She edited Kent's selfish behavior into a short video and spread it among our high school classmates. As a result, he lost all his friends, and those who might have helped him also turned away. He was left to solve everything on his own. He was immediately kicked out of his family home and spent his days in a motel, depleting his savings while searching for a new home and job. Being unemployed and without a stable address, it was hard for him to settle down. Eventually, he moved to a distant land as it became uncomfortable for him to stay in the city. He finally found a part-time day job, struggling with the unfamiliar physical labor. Sure, there was no mercy. I warned him that if he ever missed a child support payment, I would sue him for assault for kicking me in the stomach. The photos I took of my injuries in case something happened to the baby proved to be useful. The medical records from when I was treated at the hospital for the injuries would also serve as significant evidence. I filed the divorce papers, and almost concurrently with giving birth, I became a single mother. I was not living alone though. I rent a house and decided to live with Sarah.
It was the four of us, Sarah, our babies, and me. The children got along as if they were siblings. Sarah and I were best friends to begin with. With Kent out of the picture, our friendship as women only grew stronger. When one of us needed to step out, the other would take care of both babies, allowing us to manage work and have some time to refresh. We're already talking about taking our kids to the park together for the first time once they're a bit older. For now, I'm looking forward to enjoying this comfortable life.
Come on, swim faster or you'll drown.
From way above me, I could hear the laughter of my husband who had pushed me into the river. I had broken both my legs a month ago. There was no way I could swim. As I desperately struggled to keep from sinking in the cold water, my husband said something. Hearing that, all the patience I had been holding on to felt foolish. My name is Isabella. I'm a 26-year-old office worker. I have a husband, Joe, who is 34 and also an office worker. Though we're a few years apart, his vast life experience has been a support to me in many ways. Joe and I met at work, where he was my boss. Initially, Joe made the first move, but I was drawn to him for his competence and leadership in various situations. Our relationship smoothly progressed to marriage. Working for a company with branches nationwide, I transferred to a different branch after getting married, feeling nervous yet fulfilled in my new environment. As a dual-income couple, we shared household chores. This company is ideal for me, eager to learn everything I can here, making studying indispensable even amidst a busy schedule. Joe also worked late, which motivated me to do my best. Being in the same company, we could easily understand what the other was working on and share daily events, making conversations with Joe very enjoyable. Initially, things were going well, but at some point, when I consulted Joe about work as usual, "So you've gotten to handle such tasks now?" "Well, do your best," he responded somewhat coldly. The Joe I knew before would listen until I was satisfied and think of solutions together. I felt a bit lonely, but wondered if I had been a burden. Joe was busy, and I was no longer a newcomer. Telling myself that I should be able to solve things on my own by now, I consulted my new boss when in real trouble and tried not to discuss work at home. Then, on payday, "How much did you earn this month?" Joe asked for the first time. We had agreed to contribute a fixed amount from our salaries for living expenses and bills without knowing each other's exact incomes. It was unusual for Joe to ask such a question, but seeing no reason to hide it, I showed him my payslip. Then Joe, shocked, said,
All this without overtime. Don't joke with me. When did you start earning so much?
Far from being happy about the increased household income, Joe started treating me with a hostile attitude from that day on. Looking back, I remember hearing that Joe had an unusually high pride and only liked being around people who could boost his self-esteem.
It's because I've been sharing the housework that you can earn like this. I want to get promoted too, but I've been holding back.
Joe said that and instructed me to take over all the household chores.
A wife should play a supporting role to her husband and be modest,
he said abusively. Shocked, but verbally compliant. Understood. Please focus on your work, I said, while internally taking it as a challenge to manage all the housework and still excel at my job. However, seeing me juggle work and all the household chores, Joe would say things like,
I wish you'd just break down already.
Or,
can't you clean more thoroughly? I hate it when the room doesn't look like a showroom.
I tried to brush it off, but it was undeniably stressful. Perhaps it was wrong to keep thinking about divorce every day, whether at home or work. One day on my way to work, I missed a step on the station stairs and tumbled down a long way. I don't remember falling, but it must have been a bad fall because I ended up breaking both legs. Fortunately, no one else was involved in the accident during the morning rush, but I had to be hospitalized for a while. When Joe visited the hospital, he seemed annoyed and laughed.
Lately, you've been too proud of your work success. This is your punishment.
And said,
Your fractures are nothing serious, so come back home soon.
And left. After that, Joe did visit daily, but only to angrily say,
The house is dirty. Come back soon.
Without a word of concern for me. I explained the situation to my workplace and started working from the hospital. When Joe tried to take away the laptop, saying,
You're really greedy for money. I told you not to earn more than me.
I quickly responded,
I've already informed my boss, and I have work scheduled today. If you don't give it back, I'll have to call and say you took it.
Which made him return it with a click of his tongue, perhaps fearing it would become widely known since we work at the same company. Despite expressing how much he disliked me, Joe continued to visit my hospital room daily after work to complain. Upon finally returning home after my hospital stay, the room was extremely dirty.
I've left your work for you. You love work and housework, so you must be happy,
Joe said, but I was still in a wheelchair, unable to walk. Trying to clean what I could reach, like the desk.
Wait, you still can't stand and work? Taking too long to heal. Isn't it because you're always sitting in that wheelchair?
He criticized. I wanted to divorce him right there and then, but I couldn't move properly until my legs healed. I couldn't tell the hospital, where I had planned to have Joe take care of me post-divorce, that I wanted to be readmitted, so I endured until I fully recovered, thinking it was just a matter of patience. I told myself that overcoming this would make me stronger, and I'd divorce Joe, living each day without consulting anyone. One day, Joe's attitude changed completely.
How about we go see a movie?
There's something I want to see, he suggested. Though I felt a bit happy, the change was so drastic that it felt odd, so I replied,
It's unusual for you to suggest that. I still have chores to do, so feel free to go by yourself.
But Joe said,
Actually, my boss found out about my behavior and your situation and gave me an earful. I've been a burden till now, so I want us to go together. We haven't been out recently, and I want Isabella to take a break as a token of my gratitude.
Then he asked,
What else needs to be done?
And took care of everything. It had been a while since we went out together. Though I was suspicious, Joe tends to change his attitude quickly if someone in a position of authority speaks to him. If his boss had spoken to him, maybe he truly wanted to change. With that thought, I felt slightly happy, and given how tense I'd been every day, I decided to indulge in the break and agreed to go out. He helped me into the car, and we started our drive. The cinema was relatively close, so I didn't think it would be too much of a burden for him to drive, but we kept moving away from the direction of the cinema I knew. Curiously, I asked,
Isn't the cinema in that direction?
Joe replied with a smile.
The local cinema wouldn't feel special, right? I thought we'd go to a bigger one today.
Feeling reassured, I let Joe take the lead and soon fell asleep in the car, tired from the daily grind.
We're here.
Joe's voice woke me up, and we were at a deserted river, with no cinema in sight. Confused, I asked,
What's going on?
Joe said,
The weather's nice. How about we take a commemorative photo?
And grabbed my arm tightly, trying to pull me out of the car. Suddenly frightened, I resisted, but with my legs being weak and the strength of a man being overwhelming, I was forcibly dragged out. Without being put back in my wheelchair, the pain of dragging my legs made me groan. He dragged me near a bridge, gripping my legs as if to lift me, and I felt a fear like never before.
Stop!
I involuntarily screamed, but with no one around to help, I felt nothing but despair at the thought of being thrown off. Then Joe, checking to make sure no one was around and annoyed, said,
Damn it! Don't make a noise! It'll be trouble if someone calls the cops.
And forcefully pushed me into the river. It happened in an instant. Unlike in dramas, I didn't see the face of the person pushing me or my life flash before my eyes. I just fell into the river. In an instant, not understanding what had happened, I looked up from the river, desperately asking for help from Joe while angry, but he said,
Better swim fast or you'll drown. Don't be mad just because you fell into the river. Maybe you need a little hardship, huh?
And then he tried to leave. I pleaded,
Please help me. I'll do anything you say from now on.
Even though I didn't mean it, I thought it was the only way to be saved. Still, Joe said,
You're healed, right? Swim back home.
And laughed, then left without trying to help, drove away in his car. Desperately wanting to live, I managed to grab onto a floating log, struggling with the pain in my legs and my inability to move properly, let alone my poor swimming skills, teetering between life and death. If no one came to help. Just then,
Are you okay? Hold on, I'm coming to help you.
A man hurried from the shore. A man with a large empty plastic bottle swam to me, gave it to me for buoyancy, and then pulled me to shore, saving me. After being urgently transported.
Thank you, really, thank you so much.
I said to the man, crying from gratitude.
No problem at all. My name is Brian. I was fishing a bit away and saw a woman being forcibly taken out of a car. I was shocked and sorry I couldn't reach you before you got wet.
He replied. Despite everything happening so quickly from being pulled out of the car to being pushed into the river, I was grateful for his help.
Not at all. You saved my life.
I expressed my thanks. After sharing with Brian and the doctor about Joe's usual behavior at home and what happened this time, both were outraged and immediately reported it. The next day, to witness Joe's arrest, Brian and I went home together. I was still not fully healed, so I was in a wheelchair. The police were waiting for Joe as he returned home from work. Seeing me and Brian, Joe looked between us and mockingly said,
Did you have an affair and get in trouble with the police?
Your life is over. Laughing. Confused by his absurd conclusion, the police said,
What are you talking about? We're here to take care of you.
And handcuffed Joe. Joe, yelling, said,
What did I do? Who is this guy? Explain.
Trying to grab me even as the police restrained him. Astonished, I said,
Did you forget what you did to me? Dragging me out of the car and pushing me into the river? That's a crime, isn't it?
Looking straight into Joe's eyes.
But you're alive, so I don't see why I'd be arrested.
Joe retorted nonsensically. Being alive doesn't justify anything. Joe didn't apologize for anything he had done. Far from it, he insisted he was not at fault, and to me, he no longer seemed like a husband but something devoid of human compassion. The act of throwing someone into the river, given the real possibility of death resulting from it, is considered attempted murder. The police explained carefully. Joe had heard of fractures but never experienced one himself. Many around him had suffered fractures and seemed to live normally, so Joe perceived it as a minor injury.
I thought fractures healed quickly, and given Isabella's resilience, I assumed she'd easily climb out of the river unharmed.
Joe argued, claiming his arrest was an overreaction. He also assumed my absence from home was due to my reluctance to do housework, maintaining his innocence. Then, Brian, who had been silent till now.
All I've heard is you justifying your actions. It seems you're not concerned about Isabella's injuries. From what I witnessed, your indifference is unbelievable.
He spoke up. Joe scoffed.
You claim to have seen the scene, but there was no one there, was there? Do you have proof you were present?
To which Brian countered, showing Joe a video.
There's plenty of evidence.
Though taken from a distance, it clearly captured Joe dropping me into the river.
When I arrived, Isabella was nearly drowning, teetering on the edge of life and death. You wouldn't have seen, having left after dropping her. It's hard to tell from above, but the current was strong.
Brian continued.
From the bridge, it might have seemed deserted, but the shore had people like me fishing, or couples jogging, surprisingly many witnesses. They all provided evidence for Isabella.
Brian proudly showed Joe the videos. Joe's face visibly paled as if in a cartoon.
This was taken by another couple. As someone with a loved one, I find this unforgivable. They insisted you must pay for your actions.
Brian silenced Joe. Frustrated and unable to retort, Joe could only glare at us. Seeing him, I said, "Showing this in court will certainly demonstrate the malice in your actions." Finally conceding, I'm sorry. Joe apologized. He pleaded, "Please, I have a job. Spare me the arrest and the trial." But I realized his apology was only out of fear of his company finding out. Unforgiven, we proceeded to trial. Upon hearing of the trial, Joe protested.
I apologized. What more do you want? I'll fight this in court. I won't let you have her way.
His outcry didn't deter me. I was determined to see the trial through. With decisive evidence in hand and Brian's support, I was able to calmly face Joe to the end. Joe insisted that fractures were minor injuries that everyone around him recovered from easily, attempting to depict me as lazy, but no one was swayed. I had been discharged from the hospital to continue rehabilitation at home, as explained by the doctor, not because I was fully healed. Joe's attempt to diagnose me without medical expertise only garnered sympathy for me from everyone present. The judge, after viewing the evidence I brought, handed down a swift prison sentence without probation to Joe, citing the maliciousness of his actions. Even after the verdict, Joe refused to give up.
The judge and police are all deceived. Is she even really fractured? If so, her suffering seems like an act.
And
stop this nonsense and just obey me like before. What happened to you, Isabella?
He ranted. To which I quietly responded, "The one who is wrong here is you." Joe's continued slander worsened the judge's impression, extending his sentence, as he inflicted more pain upon himself through his actions. Finally, everything ended, and I was free from Joe through divorce, feeling both exhausted and relieved. The more I put effort into my work, the more Joe used to get angry in the past. But now, I can focus entirely on what I want. It's as if Joe never existed. I concentrate on what's in front of me and steadily build my career. Fortunately, my workplace had no one who undermined others' character. And the depressive state Joe's attitude had induced in me gradually improved, allowing me to reclaim my former self. I also moved out of the cramped house I had lived in, enjoying a more elegant lifestyle, managing household chores and indulging in my interests as if reclaiming my lost time. Life is good now. Maybe marriage isn't for me for a while. I mused, noticing Brian looking at me sadly. The person I am today exists thanks to Brian, who saved me when I was drowning in the river. He was there for me, exhausted in both body and mind, after the trial ended and the divorce was finalized. He accompanied me during my hospital stay and my first trial, which is why I desperately wanted to express my gratitude by inviting him out for a meal on my treat today. Yet, considering Brian's busy daily schedule, I felt it wouldn't be right to invite him out too frequently, so I decided this would be a one-time gesture. Expecting the conversation to remain formal, I was surprised how well we got along, realizing hours had passed. I looked at the watch and realized,
Sorry for taking up your valuable time. Let's call it a day. I had fun. Thank you.
I said, preparing to leave, but Brian asked, Can I invite you out again sometime? With a smile. Relieved he had enjoyed himself, we parted ways. Following Brian's invitation, we grew closer through multiple meetings, eventually dating and, surprisingly, marrying. Despite my initial apprehensions about a second marriage, Brian proved to be the ideal partner, supporting my career without jealousy or interference, enhancing my performance. Our relationship, built on mutual respect, allowed us to lead vibrant lives. Brian's hobby of fishing became a shared interest, helping me overcome my trauma of nearly drowning. Thanks to Brian's kindness, I've been able to live freely and happily. You can't even show your grandparents' face, you unfilial person. With that, my sister looked at me triumphantly. It's been 5 years since I got married, and while taking care of my father at my parents' home, I've been undergoing fertility treatments. My sister got married and was blessed with a child within 6 months. 2 months into her pregnancy, she returned to our parents' home for the birth. When I point out that my sister does nothing around the house, she coldly snaps back at me. Since you're useless because you can't have children, at least be useful to me. My name is Johanna, I'm 35 years old. I live with my husband Andrew, and my sister Camilla, taking care of our father, Richard. Andrew and I got married 5 years ago, and we've been struggling to have children, currently undergoing fertility treatments. Camilla also got married and lives in a condominium with her husband, William, who is often away on business trips, leaving her alone at home a lot. Claiming it was for early birth preparation, she moved in with us, where Richard and my husband and I live, 2 months into her pregnancy. Our mother passed away early from illness, so Richard raised Camilla and me by himself. However, Camilla has always been troublesome, causing problems ever since she was a child. In elementary school, she would hit other kids, and Richard was often called to the school to apologize. We hoped she would calm down as she grew older, but that never happened. She kept causing problems until she graduated high school, constantly troubling Richard. Richard had to go around apologizing to people, paying for damages, and was always exhausted from cleaning up after Camilla. Feeling sorry for Richard, I helped around the house as much as I could, cooking and doing laundry, so that he could have a bit of rest. Putting ourselves last, Richard devoted himself to raising us. I wanted to ease Richard's burden, so I studied whenever I had the chance. My hard work paid off, and I was able to attend a prestigious university and land a job at a major company. Now, I work remotely while taking care of Richard. Camilla, who moved in with us a month ago, does not do any housework and doesn't care for Richard, despite the trouble she caused him. Instead, she says, "Hey, big sis, isn't today's dinner too plain? I'm pregnant, so I need nutrition. Make a more luxurious dinner tonight. Oh, and polish my shoes before I go out." She treats me like a housekeeper, ordering me around. My sister, having become pregnant before me, thinks she has the upper hand. Why don't you take care of your own things for once? I was stressed out by Camilla's inactivity. Lying on the living room sofa, she glared at me. "You can't even show your grandparents' face, you unfilial person." She sneered. "What a thing to say! I would have children if I could. But that's not possible for me. Filled with frustration, I looked down. Seeing my distress, she added insult to injury. Since you're useless because you can't have children, at least be useful to me. Camilla snapped coldly. Tears welled up, and I was left speechless, so I left the room. I went to my bedroom and cried into my pillow. Yet, I kept telling Camilla every day that it's better for her and the baby if she moved a bit, and to take care of herself. One day, perhaps in a bad mood. Enough, you're so annoying. Can't you just leave the house? Just come here for Dad's care and the chores. She blurted out something outrageous. If you dislike me that much, why don't you go back home? To which she replied, going back home would just increase my workload. What do you think I'm here for? You're the housekeeper, just listen to what I say and keep quiet. Camilla said, mocking me. Realizing it was a waste of time, I started preparing for work. While I worked, Camilla lounged on the sofa, eating snacks and watching TV. I debated telling Andrew about the situation but didn't want to drag him into a sibling quarrel. Camilla puts on a good front in front of Andrew, so it probably looks like we're living harmoniously. While I was hanging laundry, how long are you planning to stay here? Camilla suddenly asked. I have to take care of Dad. I can't just leave, I said while hanging the clothes. It's going to be a problem if you don't leave. The baby is coming soon. You need to free up your room for us. My husband and I were using the bedroom that Richard used to occupy. This room is the largest in the house. That's impossible. I refused, and she just said, okay, and backed off easily. The next day, while I was working, Camilla, usually lazing on the sofa, seemed to be up to something. Busy with work, I didn't pay much attention until I went to my room and was shocked. The long-running manga I had collected since childhood, and the accessories and clothes I bought as a reward for myself upon employment, were all gone. Instead, the floor was covered with baby items. I rushed down the stairs and confronted Camilla relaxing in the living room. Camilla, where did you put the stuff from my room? It was in the way, so I sold it. If you're not leaving, we need the space. Your room is going to be the baby's room. I cleaned it up for you, so you should be thankful, she said nonchalantly, showing no sign of remorse. It's unacceptable to sell someone's belongings without permission. Bring them back now. I'm usually calm, but I couldn't remain so this time. Each item was filled with memories and treasured by me. Why are you so angry? You always say to move if I can, so I did while I could. There's no money left, just give up, she said, disinterestedly shifting her gaze back to the TV. Among the items Camilla sold was the engagement ring Andrew had given me. I insisted she buy it back, but she claimed she had no money and went back to her room. I told Andrew about everything that had happened so far, including today's incident, and apologized for the engagement ring being sold. Andrew was shocked to hear the story but immediately went to buy back the ring, and thankfully, we were able to retrieve it. Since then, I started paying more attention to Camilla's actions. I noticed that Camilla goes out a lot for someone who is pregnant. She lazes around during the day, but leaves in the evening and often returns late at night or in the morning. I hadn't worried about it before since Camilla has always been more active at night, but I wondered what she could be doing while pregnant. I discussed it with Richard and Andrew, and we decided to investigate her actions. One day, I secretly followed Camilla, who had dressed up and left the house. She walked confidently, as if she knew exactly where she was going, and entered a busy downtown area. She stopped in front of a hotel and waited for someone. A man arrived. and it was clear he wasn't William. I had suspected something, but seeing them enter the hotel arm in arm confirmed my fears. I immediately contacted William. When I told him about Camilla's affair, he was shocked, having thought she had come back home early for the birth, but he quickly hired a detective agency to investigate. William reported the investigation results to us while Camilla was out. The investigation confirmed Camilla's affair. Moreover, from conversations between Camilla and her lover, Johnny, it was revealed that the child Camilla was carrying was Johnny's. Hearing the report, Richard turned pale and, in tears,
William, my foolish daughter has done something terrible. She's ruined her life. I don't know how I can ever make amends.
He apologized to William. Richard, please don't apologize. I'm angry at Camilla, not at you. We may be family, but we are different people. It's my fault for not seeing her true nature. Camilla betraying such a man of character was beyond foolish. We agreed to gather on Saturday when Camilla would be home, and then we adjourned. Saturday. The sound of the front door opening echoed. I'm sorry for intruding. William appeared in the living room. William, you didn't say you were coming today. What's up? The baby's gotten quite big, hasn't it? Camilla, rubbing her belly, smiled and spoke to William, oblivious that he knew everything. Camilla, is the child in your belly really mine? William asked Camilla without changing his expression. What are you saying? Are you accusing me of cheating? Camilla angrily retorted to William's words. Camilla, I know everything. The child is Johnny's, isn't it? I had a detective agency investigate, so lying is pointless. I can't continue a marriage with someone who cheats. Let's get a divorce. William spoke calmly and matter-of-factly. Camilla, panicking, tried to pretend she knew nothing. William, what are you talking about? The child in my belly is yours. We're not getting a divorce. Camilla denied it, but William placed the photos from the detective agency of Johnny and her on the table. Can you still say you haven't cheated after seeing these? Camilla looked shocked at the photos, but claimed, it's not what it looks like. He was just giving me advice. It's terrible you would doubt me. There's no need for hotel meetings for advice, I retorted, frustrated by Camilla's refusal to admit her affair. So, how do you explain this? William played an audio recording obtained by the detective agency. Camilla, your belly has gotten quite big. Yes, it's because it's your child. It's going to be adorable. He doesn't know it's my child, does he? Don't worry, William is clueless. I married him for his money anyway. I want to raise your child without any financial troubles, so it had to be someone wealthy. William stopped the recording there. Too bad I found out, he said. Camilla's face turned pale. Upon hearing the audio for the first time, Richard, with his face flushed red and shaking with anger. Camilla, do you not have a conscience? All you think about is using people. It's high time you learn some shame, he exclaimed. Perhaps realizing there was no way out, she defiantly retorted. It's my child, no matter who the father is. It will be Dad's first grandchild regardless, so what's the problem? I'm going to have this child and raise it here. Unable to contain my anger at Camilla's defiant outburst. Camilla, how much trouble do you have to cause Dad before you're satisfied? Do you have any idea how much you've made him suffer because of you? I yelled louder than I ever have before. Camilla turned to me. A useless person who can't even have children has no right to speak. Dad would be happier living with me,
who can show him a grandchild's face than with an unfilial person like you?"
And she laughed triumphantly as if she had one.
"What did you say?" I exploded. "Jealous because Dad pays more attention to me, right? Always playing the perfect student, but now you're the inferior one because you can't have children. The baby chose me, not you, so you should leave this house." "What do you know, Camilla? How much do you think I've suffered because of you?" "Both of you, stop." "Camilla, I don't care about the grandchild, just leave."
Richard intervened. Camilla looked stunned by Richard's demand.
"Eh? Dad, why do I have to leave? It should be her." "Camilla, I'm done cleaning up your messes. I can't deal with this anymore. I don't care about seeing the grandchild, just leave within a week."
Camilla couldn't accept Richard's words. "That's cruel. Dad, are we not family?" And with that, she began to cry.
"You only think about yourself, acting out of self-interest. You've belittled Johanna and now betrayed William. You might want my inheritance, but I've decided to leave most of it to Johanna, who has sincerely taken care of me and kept our home together."
Richard declared this in front of everyone. Soon after, William added,
"Camilla, please sign here. I'll be filing for divorce immediately after this. And don't forget about the alimony."
Camilla, cornered by everyone, slammed the table.
"Is it fun for all of you to gang up on me? What's wrong with loving someone I truly care about? I've always loved Johnny. You should be grateful that a dull man like you got to marry me and was about to have a family."
She yelled.
"Is that all you have to say? Then sign quickly."
William remained calm throughout. He no longer seemed to regard Camilla as a fellow human. His look was akin to observing an animal.
"If you divorce me, you'll never find another wife, William. Don't come regretting it later."
Camilla angrily signed the divorce papers and threw them at William. William filed the papers immediately, and they became strangers. The next day, just to be sure, a DNA test was conducted to confirm if the baby really was Johnny's. The test scientifically proved the baby wasn't William's, and when Richard told Camilla to leave, "Why should I be the one to leave? Shouldn't the failure over there leave?" Camilla lashed out. Having no place to go after being kicked out, Camilla went to Johnny's, only to run into his wife. A confrontation ensued, leading to Johnny's divorce. Camilla, playing the tragic heroine denied true love, happily remarried the man she truly loved, and gave birth to a healthy baby. Johnny, who had entered into a marriage of convenience due to his failing family business, lost his financial support and assets. Previously a nominal president at his wife's company, Johnny couldn't find work anywhere and resorted to part-time jobs to scrape by. Camilla and Johnny, living in a cheap apartment with shared toilets and no bath, struggled with living expenses due to alimony payments to Johnny's ex-wife and William. Constant financial stress led to frequent arguments, and despite wanting a divorce, neither could afford to leave, resulting in a loveless marriage. Where did their true love go? Camilla struggled daily with odd jobs, part-time work, childcare, and household chores. Unaccustomed to housework, the home was always a mess. Camilla, who had always lived lavishly on others' money, now wore old clothes and an apron, a stark contrast to her former stylish self. Despite their hardships, both put effort into parenting. I returned to a peaceful life, taking care of Richard. I occasionally keep in touch with William, who I worried might become distrustful of women. However, he reconnected with his first love at a reunion and is now in a serious relationship. The day William told me he had a girlfriend, I received another piece of joyful news. Our continued fertility treatments were successful, and we were expecting a child. Actually, twins. We shared the news with Richard, and now the three of us eagerly await the arrival of our babies.
Nick and Laura are coming back for the birth of their child at home, so you need to leave, Antonio said loudly. Leave? Me? When I asked back, Antonio nodded with a smile. I've always thought things would be better without you. I hate people who always throw around the right arguments like you do. There are other women besides you. Just because we've been together for so long doesn't mean we have to stay together in the future. Antonio was the one who made a bold statement. Whatever difficulties he faces from now on are none of my concern. He probably thinks he'll forget about it after a good night's sleep, but not this time. He should take responsibility for his own words. I'm Scarlett, 55 years old. Right now, I live with my husband, Antonio. Antonio is 60, 5 years my senior. So, he recently retired. Antonio said, maybe I'll spend my time enjoying my fishing hobby now. He seemed happy about it. Meanwhile, I run a small apparel company, thankfully making a decent profit. Currently, we can afford to live in a high-rent condominium, thanks to my job. Antonio was supportive, but after his retirement, he changed. First, his daily routine shifted. Now, always at home, Antonio had many days without plans. This led to a more lax lifestyle, staying up late watching TV or sleeping past noon. Occasionally, that's okay, but when it goes on for days, it's concerning. I suggested, shouldn't you keep a regular schedule, especially at your age? But Antonio seemed unconcerned. Instead, I've worked hard all my life. Let me be. Don't tell me what to do, he retorted. Another issue was Antonio's boredom. He had a few friends and his only hobby was fishing alone. He seemed increasingly idle after retiring, and he began nitpicking at my housekeeping. Frankly, I'm not great at domestic chores. Busy with work, I rely heavily on the latest home appliances. A cleaning robot for housekeeping, electric cookers for meals. Antonio didn't like that. Robots can't clean every nook and cranny. Doing it by hand is more thorough. He insisted on me doing things manually. One evening, he complained about dinner. Stews need time and attention, not an electric cooker. Even though he never minded before, now he was imposing his preferences. At worst, stop being lazy! You're so sloppy, he would say. I'd consider his requests if I had the time, but I'm too busy with work. If he's retired and has time, he should do it. When I pointed this out, just because you work doesn't mean you can act superior, he snapped. I couldn't help but understand why some people divorce later in life. Yet I endured, considering how hard we had worked together. But things escalated due to a particular event. Our son's wife's pregnancy. Our only son, Nick. His wife, Laura, announced her pregnancy. Actually, Nick isn't my biological son. He's Antonio's, from a previous marriage. We remarried when Nick was 10. Antonio was ecstatic about the pregnancy announcement. Our first grandchild! Our first grandchild! Yes, it's exciting. I replied, happy too. But Antonio's joy was beyond normal. I think he was experiencing grandparent fever. That's why things turned out this way. Laura, raised by a single mother, I'd like to go back there to give birth, probably because he said so. Laura grew up in a single-parent household, so this time, my mom is too busy with work, she explained. So Antonio, eager as ever, said, we need to welcome the baby in the best possible way. And he began preparations. That's fine, but he strangely imposed it all on me. This crib, every kind of milk, just in case. Oh, and a lot of diapers. He just barked orders. I was already swamped with work and chores. Even when I made time to prepare, it was never right. No, not like that, he'd complain. No, you're saying it's not this. Please, enough. I understand you're excited, but do it yourself. Stop relying on me for everything. He seemed shocked to be challenged, standing frozen. Our first grandchild, and you act so detached. Right, you're not biologically related to Nick, so you don't care about him. That's not true. Don't say such awful things. You're overdoing it. If Laura knew how much you're doing, she might not want to come here. This place doesn't feel relaxing. Antonio tried to respond, but couldn't find the right words. Frustrated, he clenched his teeth and retreated to his room. Damn it. I didn't mean to go that far. His fanaticism had driven me to stubbornness, and being spoken to like that about Nick hurt me too. I want Nick and Laura to relax here. That's why I had to stop Antonio's excesses. Later, I thought about making amends, but Antonio didn't come out of his room. Reluctantly, I looked through the door. I'm sorry about yesterday. I'm going, I said, and went to work. That day, I faced numerous work troubles and got home quite late. Dinner was going to be delayed. What should I make? As I thought this on my way home, I found Antonio already sitting at the dining table, waiting. I'm home. Sorry, I'm late. I'll make dinner as quickly as I can. There was no reply from Antonio. I moved around busily. Antonio just sat there, staring as if pressuring me. If he's home anyway, he could have made dinner. Or at least, he didn't need to rush me like this. Finally, I managed to make crispy fish sandwiches and served them. Sorry for the wait, let's eat. Antonio immediately started eating his sandwich in silence. Were you that hungry? I sat down and began eating my sandwich. Before I was even halfway through, Antonio had finished eating. He sat up straight and looked at me. What? I asked. Antonio spoke in a low voice. You're all about work, neglecting the housework. What? His unexpected words nearly made me drop my sandwich. What are you talking about? I'm not neglecting anything. Don't act like it's nothing. Like today, just sandwiches? No salad or soup? That's unacceptable. True, I usually serve salad and soup, but today wasn't about being lazy. I hurried because Antonio seemed so eager to eat. I explained, but Antonio wasn't convinced. It's not just that. You always negate everything I say or do. You must think you're better because you're working and I'm retired. That's not how I think at all. Despite my repeated denials, Antonio remained unconvinced. I was getting tired of this pointless argument. Let's stop this. We'll be welcoming Nick and his wife soon. I don't want to greet them with this unpleasant atmosphere. At this, Antonio sneered sarcastically. All right, I've been thinking the same. So, I've found a good solution. A good solution? Puzzled, I tilted my head. Antonio declared loudly, Nick and Laura are coming back for the birth, so you should leave. What? I couldn't believe he was serious. Leave? Me? When I asked again, Antonio nodded with a smile. If you weren't here, things would go smoothly. I've always thought so. I hate people like you who always argue with logic. There are plenty of other women. I was shocked. After decades of marriage, to hear such words? Antonio, carried away, continued to vent his grievances. You lack respect for me, your husband. Always complaining, never just listening. Complaining? I respect your requests as much as I can. It's you who makes unreasonable demands. Shut up. I hate your bossy tone. Just leave. I don't even want to see your face. Antonio slammed the table. It was futile to say more. I said, understood, and returned to my room. The next morning, I called a moving company immediately. After being treated like that, I wasn't going to stay. Fortunately, it wasn't moving season, and I easily scheduled an estimate. I hoped to finish everything while Antonio was out, but he was almost always home. I was worried, but then it seemed like fate intervened. I'm going out tomorrow for a bit. Antonio is the type to forget things overnight, so he spoke to me quite normally. Apparently, Antonio was invited by his fishing buddies and was going for an overnight fishing trip. This was my chance. There was a slightly awkward atmosphere. Maybe even Antonio felt that what he said yesterday was too much. Still, there was no apology from him. He might be hoping to act as if yesterday's words never happened. He's always been like that. Until now, I've been the bigger person, letting things go. But I couldn't just ignore what he said this time. The moving estimate came quickly. I planned to take all the furniture and appliances, but there was less than I thought. The problem was finding a place to move to, but that was easily solved. Someone I knew through work offered to lend me a place. A brand new one, no less. Are you sure? I asked again, and they said, Scarlett, you've been so helpful. So I accepted the offer. I immediately went to see the property. It was more than sufficient, with no issues. I moved everything out while Antonio was away. His harsh words left me without regrets. Perhaps deep down, I had grown tired of life with Antonio. The night after I moved, Antonio called. Here it comes, I thought, and answered the phone. Hello? Hey, Scarlett! What's going on? Antonio sounded panicked, even over the phone. I almost laughed, but responded calmly. What do you mean? My house! It's empty! What's happening? Well, you told me to leave, so I did just that. I had taken everything, from the latest appliances to my favorite dining table. But I only told you to leave! It's crazy to take everything from someone's house! What? Leaving them would be crazy. I bought all that with my own money. You never contributed, saying you didn't need them. Antonio fell silent, then said grudgingly, Fine. Nick and his family are coming tomorrow. Furniture doesn't matter. He'd be surprised to see the place now. Good. Then it's perfect timing. Say hi to Nick for me. There was no point in further conversation. I quickly ended the call. There was another significant matter, but I didn't mention it since Antonio seemed unaware. The next day, Nick called. We'll be there soon. A phone call. Didn't Antonio tell you? I moved out. Really? Nick sounded surprised, but didn't press further. In fact, I sensed more relief than shock in his voice. Cool. Mom's not there. We can do whatever we want then. You're not coming back, right? That's right. I always sensed Nick found me bothersome. He seemed displeased I didn't pamper him like a biological mother might. You're not as kind as other women, he once said as a child. I thought I was raising him with love, so he wouldn't struggle later in life. Well, it's easier for both of us. Laura was uncomfortable too, so see you. That was like his father, always adding one extra, unnecessary comment. I pondered this after hanging up. That day, I was a bit on edge, unable to focus on work. I half expected a call about the furniture and appliances. Laura once said, It must be nice to have all these appliances for an easy life. I secretly thought their visit was to take advantage of that. But contrary to my expectations, no call came that day. Finally, at the end of the month, Antonio called. Scarlett? His voice lacked confidence, making his intention clear. But I played ignorant. Yes? It's about the rent. Yes? What about it? He struggled to say it, but he wanted to talk about rent. Antonio and I used to pay $1,700 for the condo rent. I was the one who paid it all. There's no way Antonio, with his retirement, could afford it. He might manage for a while with his retirement fund, but it would eventually run out. He called me, but hesitated to speak his mind. I had to prompt him. What? You're not expecting me to pay the rent for a condo I don't even live in, are you? No, that's not. You were the one who insisted I leave, right? And now you're coming back to me? That's not something Antonio's pride would allow. As expected, he changed the subject. Scarlett, are you doing okay? You know, with a place to live? Yes, I managed to find a place, thanks to some connections. I'm living comfortably. Saying this left no room for him to ask me to return. I had no intention of going back. But, just in case... Oh, okay. Nick and Laura were saying they miss you. I thought maybe you'd consider coming back. Such words were unusual for Antonio. He must be really desperate. But I had no intention of returning. Oh, really? I thought they disliked me. No, that's not. Well, it doesn't matter. I have something important to discuss, so I'll come over. Yes. Yes, there was a vital matter to discuss for my future. Antonio replied, "All right, I'll be waiting," cheerfully. Later, I visited the condo for the first time in a while. Long time no see. Antonio was dressed up, unnecessarily. No matter how much he dressed up, it was pointless. I walked down the hall and into the living room, where Nick and Laura were sitting. Clearly, they couldn't live with nothing. New sofas, tables, and a fridge were installed. Nick waved casually, and Laura, though glaring, greeted me. The atmosphere was tense. I wanted to finish what I came for and leave. I sat down as Antonio urged. "So what did you want to talk about?" Grateful he brought it up, I started the conversation. "I thought it's better to handle this sort of thing sooner rather than later." Antonio turned pale the moment he saw what I held out. "You're planning to divorce me?" He was visibly shaking, looking at the filled-out divorce papers. "Yes. Ever since you told me to leave, I've been intending to. Did you really say that without thinking?" Antonio fell silent. He probably did. He tends to blurt out things in the heat of the moment without thinking ahead. This habit had caused him troubles at work several times. "The last time you said all those terrible things, 'I don't want to see your face, there are other women,' and what else? Anyway, at that moment, I couldn't see a future with you anymore." He must remember saying those things. Antonio kept his head down, sweating. "Yeah, I said it, but that was not really what I meant. You can say such things even if they're not in your heart? I'm appalled. Well, it doesn't matter to me anymore. I was shocked. I can't do this anymore. That's all." Facing Antonio, our eyes met. He immediately flinched and looked away. "Can't you reconsider? We've come so far together. I've come this far only to be told such things. I can't do this anymore. I can't be with you." As I firmly stated, Antonio let out a long sigh. The room was enveloped in a painfully awkward silence. The silence was broken, surprisingly, by Laura. "Excuse me, I'm the one who's been most inconvenienced here." I turned to Laura, tilting my head, and she glared at me with eyes full of resentment. "What do you mean? I thought this place would be perfect with Scarlett around, clean and full of the latest appliances. I came here expecting to be pampered, but instead I'm caught up in this marital mess. It's a huge nuisance." Laura sighed even louder than Antonio had earlier. She was angry with me for not meeting her expectations of a princess-like pampering. That is a huge misunderstanding. If she's unhappy, she could go back to her own home or anywhere else. But she chose to stay here. When I said this, Laura's face turned red. "What's with that attitude? I came all the way here for you. I never asked you to come." Laura looked like she was about to scream. Her breathing was heavy with anger. "But it's absurd! I had such high hopes after talking to Antonio, and now this? It's too much." Laura finally burst into tears. Nick tried to comfort her. But this made a little sense. This explained Antonio's excessive grandparent fever. It was driven by Laura's expectations. Antonio, flattered and relied upon, must have gotten carried away. But it doesn't change anything. Laura was inconsolable, and Antonio remained frozen, sweating. There was no point in staying. "There's no use staying here. I'll leave. We can settle the divorce through lawyers." As I stood up, this time, Nick shouted, "You're running away? Shaking off your responsibilities and causing trouble." I was stunned by the absurdity. It's also good to have a grudge. Approaching Nick, who was sitting close to Laura, I found myself naturally looking down at him. What's wrong? How old do you think you are now? Huh? I'm 35 years old. I took a deep breath and glared at him. So what responsibility do you think I have? Taking care of a 35-year-old son and his wife? Or a 60-year-old husband? Nick was speechless, eyes wide. I couldn't hold back any longer. You're all adults! Enough is enough! Who's causing trouble? Using my efforts as a stepping stone while expecting me to always smile and comply? Oh, calm down, Mom. Don't act like a child now. I shouted so much I was out of breath. I took a moment to breathe deeply. At least, Nick, I always cared about you, raised you as my own, but maybe I failed to convey that. Nick started to say something, but fell silent. I grabbed my things and quickly left the room. No one followed me. Later, Antonio agreed to the divorce easily. No alimony. He mentioned moving out since he couldn't afford the condo. Antonio had never done housework before. Living alone would be hard for him. The letter passed through the lawyer, written in Antonio's familiar handwriting. Thank you for everything. Simply said. He tried to reconcile, but I firmly refused, and he seemed depressed. Nick and Laura decided to go back to Laura's family home. Laura complained, but Nick persuaded her. After the divorce, Nick called once. I'm sorry for everything. I'll try to be a parent like you. He said shyly. Maybe Nick hadn't hated me as much as I thought. I ended up buying the new house I was renting and still live there. Work is going well. I was tired right after the divorce, but now I feel refreshed. It's nice not having to take care of anyone. I'm not sure how many years I have left to work, but I'll do my best. Enjoying my private life too, and secretly, I still wish for Nick's happiness.
The retribution for shrinking his own world and acting foolishly based on wrong thinking has become very great. This is the end of the person I admired. I never thought something like this would happen. My name is Amelia. There were two major turning points in my life during my childhood. The first was my encounter with the banjo. In the 3rd grade, I happened to come across a TV feature about the banjo. I thought it was so cool that I couldn't bring myself to change the channel. Then, the sound that it made enveloped me. The energetic and rhythmic sounds became more and more intense, turning into a torrent. I continued to stare at the TV screen, even after the broadcast had ended. I was captivated by the world of the banjo in a daze. It was then that I decided I would play the banjo too. After convincing my parents, I started attending banjo lessons, beginning my journey with the banjo. It was the start of what would become my lifelong pursuit. By chance, I joined a banjo school of a certain style near my home. The banjo is often used in bluegrass music, a genre influenced by traditional folk music, with varying styles and techniques developed in different regions. Another turning point came suddenly in the 6th grade. About 2 hours after having dinner with my family, I suddenly felt sick and vomited. My eyelids swelled, my throat itched, and I felt difficulty breathing. Alarmed by my sudden condition, my parents called an ambulance, and I was taken to the hospital for treatment. It turned out I had developed a shellfish allergy. Indeed, we had crab and shrimp for dinner. Boiled crab and shrimp chili, my favorites, made for an exciting dinner. Allergies can sometimes suddenly manifest after being dormant. My favorite foods had become my worst enemies in that moment. This allergy, showing typical immediate type food allergic reactions, persisted into adulthood without developing any tolerance. Eating these foods was essentially ingesting poison. Despite longing for my once favorite foods, I couldn't return to them. Regular allergy tests showed no signs of improvement. Checking ingredients before meals became a tedious task. While my diet faced restrictions, my banjo skills improved significantly. I was a third grader when I started playing, and when I was in the 6th grade, I brilliantly won first place in the junior division of a contest. For middle school, I chose a school with a banjo club and was successfully admitted. Even though it was a bit challenging for my academic level, but I managed through hard work and determination. I really wanted to attend this school. Its banjo club was renowned nationwide, and the instructor was a famous figure in the banjo world. I joined the club as soon as I enrolled, being the first choice. The person who welcomed me was the instructor, the prominent musician Evelyn. She belonged to the same banjo school as I did, and had been a judge in the contest where I won first place. Under Evelyn's guidance, I started exploring the banjo world with new friends. During my middle school years, we achieved national victory. We competed fiercely against strong schools, barely winning by a small margin. As a senior and club president, I accepted the championship trophy. At the celebration party, generous supporters sent over a splendid crab. I must have looked troubled, noticing which, Evelyn asked what was wrong. I explained my allergy. Evelyn seemed to learn about shellfish allergies for the first time and immediately started searching on her cell phone. After a quick check, she expressed her unawareness. She mentioned how her son loved crab, saying she never imagined a favorite food could become poisonous for someone. Thankfully, there were plenty of other delicacies at the party, so I was satisfied. I suppressed the memory of my love for crab, sealing away the desire to try it again. The pain and distress from allergic reactions were too familiar, creating a strange and unpleasant feeling. In high school, I continued to hone in on my skills in the banjo club, achieving 3 consecutive national championships. The 3 consecutive wins set a new record for the competition. I also achieved 3 consecutive victories in the individual category, maintaining the top position in high school banjo playing. After graduating high school, I went on to university. When I thanked Evelyn for her 6 years of guidance, she smiled and said it wasn't a goodbye, as we were from the same school of banjo and would likely collaborate again. In university, I continued playing the banjo. I got involved in activities to expand the world of banjo, further intensifying my involvement within our school. In my 3rd year of university, Evelyn transferred to our school studio as the head. Evelyn, too, had continued to excel and solidify her position within our school during this time. Thus, we started working together again. Once, Evelyn sprained her ankle. Her foot swelled up, making it difficult to walk. She was rubbing her painful foot, calling for a ride. The person who arrived was a man, about my age, introduced as Evelyn's son, Oliver. Together, we supported Evelyn and took her home. As we were about to leave, after laying Evelyn down, Oliver invited me to stay for coffee. While having coffee, I learned a lot about Evelyn from Oliver. Evelyn had divorced her husband, Jackson, 10 years ago, raising Oliver alone. The divorce was due to Evelyn's intense focus on the banjo, leading to neglect at home and worsening their relationship. Evelyn had promised to raise Oliver well to gain custody, and she did just that. Oliver remarked that it's great to have passions, but losing sight of everything else isn't good. He said he regularly meets and communicates with Jackson. Oliver, who loves crab, jokingly said that despite his parents often treating him to it to get his attention, he gets tired of the crab attacks. I recalled Evelyn once mentioning her son's love for crab. I shared my allergy story with Oliver, how it suddenly developed, the severity of the symptoms, the struggle with memories from when I loved those foods, and the lack of improvement despite allergy tests. Oliver empathized, saying it must be tough to have your favorite food turn poisonous. He wasn't sure how he'd cope if it had happened to him with crab. He hoped I'd recover soon and be able to enjoy it again. Oliver's kindness and generosity led us to meet and talk regularly. Oliver, a university student a year ahead of me, chose a major trading company for his career, aspiring to introduce wonderful products from around the world to Japan. His eyes sparkled as he talked about his dream, which made my heart flutter. The following year, as I graduated from university, I got a job at our school's association office. I continued to play the banjo while working there. The office accepted my wish to juggle both roles. I worked towards polishing my banjo skills and increasing its social recognition. Evelyn's support was instrumental in this job opportunity. She recommended me for my banjo skills, passion, and business management knowledge from university. One day, Oliver invited me out to celebrate my graduation and new job. He had successfully led a major project at work and earned high praise. I suggested celebrating with crab, but Oliver said it would be dull for me as I couldn't eat it, and he wouldn't enjoy it either. Instead, he took me to an upscale Chinese restaurant, ensuring the menu was without shrimp or crab. He mentioned Jackson had recently treated him to crab in celebration. Oliver and Jackson still keep in touch, and Jackson seemed to care about Evelyn. As our meal was ending, Oliver earnestly proposed to me, wanting to start a relationship with marriage in mind. He understood I was busy with my new job, so there was no rush, but he expressed his desire to build a family with me in the near future. His seriousness moved me, and I found myself tearing up. I had fallen for him more than I realized, and so we became engaged. My parents liked Oliver and were happy, and Evelyn was overjoyed, unable to hide her surprise. I heard that Jackson was also pleased. I thought I should properly meet Jackson soon. About a year later, as my work and banjo activities were going smoothly and Oliver's career was picking up, we got married. Our wedding reception featured a special menu without shrimp and crab, which was delicious and extravagant, receiving high praise from the guests. I met Jackson for the first time then. He seemed kind and reliable, much like Oliver. Jackson appeared more nervous than us, the bride and groom, as it had been a while since he last saw Evelyn. We set up our new home near Oliver's family and started our married life. I continued to progress in both my job and banjo playing, achieving great results. Oliver was also succeeding in his work, establishing his position in his department. Though we were both busy, we cooperatively managed household chores, living happily each day. Evelyn was getting more administrative work within the school, struggling to find time for her own practice, which seemed to cause her anxiety and impatience. Our relationship remained good after my marriage. Though we were teacher and student, colleagues, and had become like family, I felt our relationship was changing, slightly due to Evelyn's recent restlessness. Later, I began teaching as well as performing, recognized by the association for my skills. Oliver was thrilled for me, and Evelyn seemed happy too, but her reaction was somewhat subdued, which concerned me. 1.5 years into our marriage, 2 significant events occurred. The first was my pregnancy, revealed during a medical checkup for recent ill health. Oliver and I were expecting a new member of our family. Oliver was overjoyed, nearly in tears, literally jumping for joy. I was in disbelief about becoming a mother, smiling at the thought of our child. The second event was my selection as the representative for our banjo school in a biennial banjo performance competition. This event, where selected players from each school compete, is a significant event to showcase skills and the reputation of the school. Evelyn was also considered for the competition and showed interest, but I was chosen and she was not. Whether this was the cause, I couldn't be sure, but Evelyn's attitude towards me became colder and more distant. I hoped it was temporary and maintained my usual approach to her, thinking the baby might help mend our relationship. Around this time, Oliver got a promotion. Successfully completing projects and expanding profits, he was appointed as a department head, the youngest to do so. I was feeling utterly happy with all these joyous events. Evelyn invited us to a dinner to celebrate these occasions. I was pleased that Evelyn, who had been a bit distant recently, made the suggestion, and Oliver and I happily accepted. Oliver was delighted too, and jokingly said he had a surprise planned, though I had no idea what it could be. On the day of the celebration dinner at Oliver's family home, the table was filled with various dishes. When I saw all the dishes, I froze in shock. This was because the crabs were placed in their respective places. Evelyn, I can't eat crab. I know. This is prepared for Oliver. Yours is special, so it's okay. She explained that the crab was an expensive one, costing hundreds of dollars each, indeed looking splendid and delicious. But for me, whether exquisite or plain, it was something I couldn't eat. The world has advanced so much nowadays with technology. There's fake food that's very close to the real thing. This is, imitation crab, kanikama. Alternative foods have been evolving, and among them, imitation crab, or kanikama, has reached a point where its appearance and taste are indistinguishable from the real thing. Evelyn wanted me to experience the feeling of eating crab to alleviate any frustration. Oliver was initially surprised to see the crab on the table, but after hearing Evelyn's explanation, he suggested that I relax and enjoy. I agreed to Evelyn's proposal and sat down, and the celebratory meal began. Even knowing it was kanikama, I hesitantly tried a bite. Indeed, it did seem just like the real thing, reminding me of the taste from long ago. I realized this was the flavor I had longed for but couldn't have. I was astonished by the quality of the modern kanikama. Seeing me, Oliver seemed happy too. Wanting to experience the taste again, I took another bite, but immediately spat it out, feeling something was off. and threw all the crab on my plate into the kitchen trash. Oliver was shocked. "Why are you wasting food like this? It's just imitation crab, and my mom prepared it, especially for you." He yelled, but I didn't flinch, knowing my life had been threatened. "This is not kanikama, it's real crab." Oliver, confused, checked the crab in the trash and muttered in realization. He confronted Evelyn, asking what this meant. Evelyn, flustered, repeated excuses like it might have been mistakenly mixed or wasn't clear. After 30 minutes after I first tried the crab, I developed hives and inflammation in my mouth. Clearly, it was an allergenic reaction. I spat it out immediately, yet I'm in this condition. If I had swallowed it, it wouldn't have ended well. Plus, I'm pregnant. What if it had harmed my baby? Evelyn, cornered, began to confess. "I was upset that you were thriving in banjo and selected for the competition while I was left out. I wanted to separate you and Oliver, and with a baby, it would have been much harder. So, I wanted to make you suffer and cause a miscarriage," she admitted. Hearing Evelyn's selfish reasoning, I was trembling with anger and sadness over her betrayal. Oliver was furious at her folly. Then, someone entered the room. It was Jackson. Apparently, he had heard everything from outside. "What you did is akin to attempted murder. There's no excuse for such selfish reasoning." As I was surprised by Jackson's sudden appearance, Oliver explained. "It was supposed to be a celebration, so I invited Dad as a surprise. He was concerned about Mom, and it seemed like a good opportunity." Evelyn, overwhelmed by Jackson's unexpected arrival, collapsed to her knees. Even if she didn't intend it, what she did was life-threatening for me. Jackson, a lawyer, asked if I wanted to press charges. In such a serious case, an immediate arrest would normally follow, but since it wasn't public, my decision as the victim was respected, saying it was legally questionable for him to offer such a choice. He admitted he was unfit as a lawyer. Considering the kindness Evelyn had shown me since middle school and the safety of my baby and me, I declared I wouldn't press charges, but would cut ties with her from that day. It was a decision made without Oliver's agreement, but he nodded in approval. Evelyn just wept. No amount of tears could undo her foolish actions. Under Jackson's watch, Evelyn was to seek rehabilitation. His intention wasn't to supervise her, but to rebuild their relationship. Yet, it ended up this way. Unswayed by emotions, I calmly reported the incident to the association. The leadership, caught off guard by a senior member's misconduct, deliberated and decided to dismiss Evelyn. It was necessary to free Evelyn from her obsession with the banjo. I heard from Jackson, who was keeping an eye on her, that Evelyn was now living modestly, looking for part-time work. The rewards for shrinking one's world by oneself and doing foolish deeds based on wrong thinking have been very great. I then joined the competition. The performance was a little difficult for the contestants, who had to cover their growing bellies, but they performed beautifully and won the competition. I was able to further the name of my school. I intend to continue to pursue the world of banjo. Now, building a happy and laughing family with my soon-to-be born child was an equally important goal.
My name is Amy, a 27-year-old office worker. I just got married half a year ago. I met my husband James at a barbecue party thrown by a couple of colleagues at work. At that party, the colleague had invited her female friends from work and her boyfriend gathered his friends from college days. Looking back, it seems like it was a setup as a place to meet new people. My family is quite strict. My dad is a company president and enforced strict discipline since I was a child. I even had a curfew until high school. I had never been to parties before and felt shy in large gatherings, especially around many men. That day, I mostly talked with the female friends of my colleague. James was the first one who approached me.
Amy, the meat here is ready. You haven't eaten much, have you? Don't be shy here.
He said this with a smile, creating an easy-to-talk atmosphere, and we quickly hit it off. Thanks to James, who was great at livening things up, I naturally joined the group and had such a fun day that time flew by. On the way home that day, he asked for my contact information, and the next day,
I had a great time yesterday. I'd like to meet just the two of us next time.
I received that message. Gathering my courage, I replied, "Me too." Immediately after, the phone rang.
Really? I'm so happy. When should we do it? Where do you want to go?
My heart raced with such exchanges. I was so happy when he asked me out at the end of our first date that I said yes right away. After one of our dates, he was driving me home, and when we arrived at my house, he seemed a bit surprised.
Amy comes from a wealthy family. I heard a bit around about it at the barbecue. Wow, what a mansion. Is your dad the president?
Yes, kind of. Do you know Davis Group?
Davis? Of course, everyone knows it. Wow, so Amy is the daughter of such a big company's president.
I'm not really a daughter of anything.
No, I wonder if it's okay for someone like me to date you. If you have a fiancé or something, I'd like to know sooner rather than later.
He said this seriously. Oh, what are you talking about? There's no one like that, and I want to marry someone I love. I have a brother and a younger brother, so I'm not going to take over.
Really?
Really. That conversation was only for that moment. Even after knowing about my family, he didn't change, and our relationship continued smoothly. Then, about a year later, he proposed, and after introducing him to my parents, we got married. He's been kind even after marriage. About a month ago, when Mom told me that Dad wasn't feeling well and was going to be hospitalized for tests, he comforted me, shocked and upset, and suggested we go see him in his car. At that time, the test results hadn't come out yet, and Dad,
I'm sorry to worry you. I've just been busy and tired lately,
he said with a smile. But that weekend, we were called to gather at my parents' house. My brother's family, my husband and me, and my still single brother. The last time we all gathered like this was at our wedding. A bad feeling crossed my mind, and sadly it came true. Dad had cancer metastasis, and it was already inoperable.
No, I was surprised. They said the test results would come in a week, but actually they called me the next day. I got a terminal diagnosis.
Dad spoke bravely, with Mom holding back tears beside him. That's so... I couldn't stop crying, and my husband put his hand on my shoulder. My brothers couldn't believe it and couldn't find the words right away.
But that doesn't mean I'm dying tomorrow. There's a lot I have to do, not just for the house, but as the head of the company. I need your help with many things.
It seemed he was mainly speaking to my older brother.
And James.
Dad addressed my husband, who was comforting me.
I'm sorry for this happening when you're newlyweds. Please take care of Amy. Of course, Mr. William. I'll do anything you need.
I cried again at their words. Dad strongly wished not to be hospitalized, so he received palliative care at home. Fortunately, the medication worked well, and Dad was initially not bedridden much, thanks to his willpower.
It's hard to believe he's seriously ill. He's so active,
Mom said. The secretary, executives, and lawyers were informed, and Dad proceeded with what needed to be done. Mom dedicated herself to caring for him, and my brothers supported Dad both personally and professionally. My older brother, the heir, had built a house near our parents even after getting married, and my younger brother still lived at home. I also tried to stop by my parents' house after work and made sure to visit Dad on weekends. My husband came with me on weekends and said things like,
"You don't have to cook dinner on those days you stop by your parents' house,"
for which I was grateful. One day when I stopped by my parents' house and came back, my husband was already home, and I heard voices from the living room. Maybe he's on the phone? I quietly entered the living room.
That's why, probably soon. He won't last much longer.
I felt a wave of anxiety, thinking I heard something unsettling. What was that? What does it mean?
Whoa!
My husband, startled by my sudden entrance, quickly hung up the phone.
You're back! Welcome home!
I'm home. Hey, who are you talking to just now? What were you talking about? It wasn't about Dad, was it?
What are you saying? Of course not. I was just talking to a friend about a game. Remember that gamer guy?
But I thought I heard something about not lasting long.
That's about the game. He's in a tournament and having a tough time. Something about his opponent running out of items and it's getting risky.
Oh, I see. Sorry, I thought you were talking about Dad and got really scared.
Amy.
My husband gently grasped my shoulder.
It makes me sad to be misunderstood like that. I do worry about Mr. William and I still wonder if there's any way to cure him.
He said earnestly. That's true. Sorry, James. You're always so kind. I just visited Dad and I guess I was feeling down. I haven't been eating much lately.
I see. I'm sorry I can't do more for you during this tough time, but it's not good to always look so sad. Maybe go out for coffee with friends sometimes.
You're right. I felt relieved by his demeanor and guilty for doubting such a kind man. Then, a month later, despite our hopes, Dad passed away. Mom, my brothers, and I, who were called, made it in time for the final farewell, having so much to do immediately afterward. From the wake to the funeral and the changes in the company with my brother taking over as president helped distract me from the grief. There was no opposition to my younger brother becoming president, thanks to Dad's trusted senior staff. There are many who will support us. Mom seemed relieved. My brother's character and the way Dad had always valued the company and its employees paid off. The next weekend, the family gathered at the behest of our legal advisor. The primary topic was the inheritance, which was equally divided among the 3 children, amounting to approximately $300,000. I could tell my husband was surprised next to me. I was shocked by the unimaginable amount, grateful, yet wishing more than anything that Dad had lived longer. There were discussions about the company's shares and properties, and the rest was to be continued another time. Exhausted from all the difficult conversations, I headed home. I'm going to rest for a bit, I said to my husband and started towards the bedroom.
Yeah, take your time. About the inheritance, since no one objected, is that decided then?
I guess so. Why?
No, just surprised by the large amount. It's daunting.
Yeah, it surprised me too. I entered the room, pondering his words. More than expected. I mused vaguely, then dozed off. Waking up, I quietly headed to the living room.
Seriously, 300,000. No mistake. Wow, that's huge. No, it's okay. How much I've worked hard and, Oh, she's up. Gotta go. Bye.
Who was that? Suppressing my surprise, I asked him, who had been on the phone.
Oh, that's Mom. She was worried about how you're doing, Amy.
I see.
Well, she said she wants to come over this weekend. There's a new cake shop she wants you to try.
Okay, then I'll buy some nice coffee. I smiled and he nodded happily, but a definite suspicion had formed in my mind. The day before mother-in-law Kathy's visit, I stopped by my parents' house. Mom, how are you? Feeling a bit better? Yes, you don't have to come by so often. Olivia is always worried and stops by too. Are you eating well? Olivia is my brother's wife, modest yet firm and compassionate. She had been devoted in caring for Dad and supported Mom during the funeral. I think my brother really married a good person. Yeah, don't worry about me. But actually, I have something I want to discuss. Oh, what's up? There's something that's been bothering me. I started to share my doubts about my husband while drinking the coffee Mom had made. Then, the next Saturday, Kathy came over. She had attended Dad's wake and funeral, and this was the first time we met since then. Amy, I'm so sorry about your dad. I brought some delicious cake to cheer you up a little. Kathy, thank you so much for everything. please have some coffee." "Oh, thank you." As the three of us ate cake, my husband brought up the topic.
So, about the inheritance,
"Yeah?"
can you transfer the $300,000 to Mom's account?
"What?" It was a conversation I never expected, and I was momentarily stunned. I don't understand what you mean."
That much money? It's too much to handle, right? You're part of our family now, so I think it's best to transfer it to my parents' bank account.
"What?" I couldn't comprehend his words. "Are you saying you need to borrow some for a car or something expensive?"
Haha, borrow? It's our money now, our family's.
My husband burst into laughter. "Our family?" "Of course, the family you married into. Your money is our money now." Kathy continued with a smile. "I'll manage it properly. You can ask when you need it, but you have your salary, right?" "Wait a minute. I don't understand. Why does it become Kathy's money even if it's our family's?"
Well, that's how it is. It's our money now, and of course Mom's too.
"This is absurd. What are you saying?"
Don't worry, your family too. First, we'll build a big multi-generational house. Maybe buy a car. We can afford it with $300,000.
James, you're so eager. But yes, we should start on the multi-generational house soon.
So, transfer it to Mom's bank account now, okay?
Please, Amy. A son's wife's money is our family's money. I was stunned by the true colors of this mother and son. A hope I held was not only crushed but surpassed by their appalling behavior. "James, did you marry me for my family's wealth?"
Huh? I really do love you. It's just that you're a wealthy heiress, Amy. Huh. When I heard you were an heiress and found out about the big company, I decided to marry you right away."
"That's right. I welcomed it too. James has always cherished you." "Cherished me for my family's wealth? Don't make such a scary face. Once you are married, you're part of the husband's family, so it's natural to hand over the wealth, right? Lucky he got sick so soon."
I was shocked. I thought we'd get a lot in the future, but never expected him to go to heaven so soon.
What a terrible thing to say! You were hoping for Dad to pass away? I couldn't stop trembling.
He got cancer on his own. If he can't be saved, it can't be helped. We just prayed for him to be at peace soon.
Yes, it's better for him to pass away quickly and leave the inheritance to his children. That's what Dad would have wanted. James had always seemed to cherish me. So when I heard those unbelievable words on the phone, I thought it was a misunderstanding. It was all an act, I realized. Looking back, I had a seed of doubt. But I thought it was natural to be excited about marrying into a wealthy family and expecting some luxuries. But this was beyond that. Unforgivable. These despicable people. Containing my rising anger, I said, "First of all, the money hasn't even been deposited into my bank account yet. It will take about another week for the procedures. I can't transfer it," said.
What a shame. I thought it had already been deposited. Hurry it up, will you?
Well, Amy seems to understand our point. Once the money is in, just give it to me and leave the rest to me.
Yeah, I'll give you Mom's bank account details later so you can transfer it right away.
Saying this, my husband, whom I no longer wanted to call as such, James, tried to put his arm around me. I slipped away from his grasp and managed to stay calm. "Please come back next week." When I said that, Kathy replied, "Okay, I will." And she left with a smile. Then the day came. The day to let this despicable, greedy mother and son know what they deserve. As soon as they entered the house and sat down, Kathy immediately started talking. "Amy, did you get the $300,000? Did you transfer it to my bank account yet?"
Let's go out for steaks tonight to celebrate.
"Oh, that's great. With $300,000 coming in, I'll treat you tonight, James." They were both in a good mood. Naturally, since they think they're about to get $300,000, unaware that everything is about to be turned upside down. "Then, I have something to report," I said, smiling calmly. "I've completed the renunciation of inheritance." "What?" their voices perfectly in sync, just like a parent and child. Their expressions, eyes wide open, were identical.
What did you say?
Renounce the inheritance? Yes, I have renounced it.
Don't joke around. Who would do such a stupid thing?
Right, who in the world would willingly give up $300,000? Well, normally people renounce inheritance when it's mostly debt. Exactly. It's absurd not to inherit when there's no debt. Kathy was screaming, her face contorted with rage. Didn't you know? It's not uncommon for business owners to choose renunciation to pass their assets to a specific heir, especially for a long-term stable management.
What?
How could you? They seemed lost for words. It's not surprising. This greedy duo couldn't fathom the idea of giving away money. In our case, it's my brother who had to take over Dad's position so soon. I plan to support him as his sister.
That's foolish. You're being deceived, Amy, by your brother and his wife.
Right, his wife must be after the money. I replied to their frantic protests. Don't compare me to you, with a cold voice. This is my decision. My brother and his wife even said there's no need for you to renounce. She's a wonderful woman. If they said you don't have to renounce, then rethink it. I already said the process is complete. The $300,000 won't come to me.
This is,
I won't give anything to a husband and his family who rejoice in the misfortune of my own family. Kathy, pale next to my husband, suddenly looked up. Incredible. No inheritance. James, we need a divorce. We'll claim compensation in the divorce case.
What?
I exclaimed in surprise. Of course, you renounced the inheritance without any fault on James's part. Where's the proof that we were happy about your dad's misfortune or after the inheritance? We acted perfectly at the wake and the funeral. Such a slick talker, admitting to their act. The proof? You just admitted it, didn't you? If you stop this nonsense and apologize, I won't divorce you. Then, a sudden angry voice echoed in the living room.
It's you who should be apologizing.
I heard a calm male voice and turned to see Kathy frozen. Ah, you! Why are you here?
Oh, Dad?
James looked surprised too. There stood my father-in-law, Mark. I caught my mother's eye behind Mark and nodded.
You've always been vain. I was happy when James married Amy, but I never imagined you were such people. I couldn't believe it until I heard it with my own ears. James, you too.
Mark looked truly pained.
What?
Kathy and my husband looked bewildered.
Last week you came here to ask Amy for the inheritance. I heard the whole conversation. What? Everything has been recorded. Today too. What do you mean?
James yelled at me. You panicked a few times when I overheard your phone calls. You thought you had fooled me, but I won't be deceived that easily. When Kathy said she was coming, I set my mobile phone to record mode just in case. Indeed, the day before Kathy's visit, I stopped by my parents' house and consulted with my mom and our lawyer. Mom was shocked.
Such a thing is unthinkable.
I was surprised, but the reality was worse than imagined, and I decided to renounce my inheritance and started the process immediately on Monday. I also contacted Mark, who was shocked to learn of his wife and son's actions and apologized profusely.
I can't stay with a person like you.
Are you serious? This is all a misunderstanding.
William was a humble man with great humanity, despite being the president of a company. I was proud to be his family and friend, but now I'm deeply ashamed and sorry.
Mark deeply apologized to me.
Amy, I'm truly sorry. You can divorce immediately, and I won't allow any nonsense about compensation in the divorce case. Hey, Dad! Shut up! Don't say another word, you disgrace. If you have a complaint, let's show today's and the other day's recordings to your colleagues and all our relatives. Ah!
Mark stole the final cool moment. But it's okay. When I talked with my mom, Mark genuinely cried, regretting Dad's loss. To James and Kathy, who stood with their mouths open, unable to speak, I said, "That's how it is. Please leave." A month later, James and I divorced. The news spread through the couple who introduced us, and James lost his friends. He was also transferred to a small sales office far away. James's parents divorced too. Kathy, who had freely spent Mark's money on brands and dining, had no choice but to agree to the divorce when asked to return the money she had spent. Couldn't she have offered to work part-time and not divorce? Her refusal to mend her ways and reconcile with Mark shows Kathy's true character. Well, it's no longer my concern. Mark came to our house to apologize again and asked to visit Dad's grave on their anniversary of his death. Mom and I, of course, agreed. The inheritance I relinquished is being used as funds for the company. Mom, my brother, even my younger brother offered to share their inheritance or redistribute it, which made me laugh. Having such a family is enough for me. Dad, I wasn't wrong, was I? After moving out of the apartment I shared with James, I returned to my parents' house and spoke to my dad's portrait. It seemed like he smiled in the photo, and tears fell from my eyes.
Enough! I'm just an unwanted child anyway. A young girl screams with all her might, longing for her mother's true love. What is a family really? As I ponder this eternal question, I hold the crying girl in my arms. My name is Emily. I became pregnant for the first time at 32. My husband Kenneth is 35 and has a child from a previous marriage. This is my first marriage, but Kenneth's second. He has a daughter with his ex-wife, Rosie. Rosie's infidelity was the cause of the divorce. Kenneth wanted to take his daughter, but she, only 2 at the time, adamantly refused to leave Rosie. Reluctantly, Kenneth let her go, as Rosie promised to take care of her. 5 years after the divorce, Kenneth still pays child support, but has never seen his daughter. I met Kenneth 4 years ago. We married a year after dating, and soon conceived. I'd be lying if I said I wasn't concerned about Rosie's child, but I harbored no negative thoughts. Instead, I felt sorry for Kenneth, unable to see his child. Before my pregnancy, I hadn't thought much about children. However, carrying a new life made me realize the pain of being separated from one's child. The mere thought of being apart from a newborn is terrifying. Maybe I'm slowly gaining a sense of parenthood. One day, while walking with Kenneth after a prenatal checkup, he suddenly exclaimed, "Ah!" he exclaimed. In front of us was a couple, arms linked. "Wow, long time no see," the woman said to Kenneth. "You too. Wait, isn't Stephanie with you?" I recognized the name. This woman was Kenneth's ex-wife, and Stephanie, their daughter. Despite living in the same city, their encounter left me speechless. Stephanie? Isn't she at home? She seemed indifferent about her daughter, out on a date with a man, possibly her boyfriend or husband. What's with that tone? You should know where your child is. She's in elementary school. She can stay home alone. She's only a first grader. Alone at home? Don't meddle in other people's business. Stephanie is my daughter. Sure. Keep paying the child support, okay? Hey! Ignoring an angry Kenneth, she and the man quickly left. A few days later, while shopping alone, I saw a familiar woman approaching. Perfect timing. I was about to go to your house. Here, take this. She thrust a young girl with a school bag in front of me. Her daughter, Kenneth's Stephanie. She must have learned her address through Kenneth. What I thought was coincidence wasn't. I'll be away for a while. Can you look after her? Wait a minute. Before I could respond, she disappeared. How fast? Left with Stephanie, I suggested. Let's go home. I couldn't leave her there. She was expressionless, silent, and immobile. Finally looking at me. I know I might not be perfect, but please take good care of me, she said politely. A first grader? Really? Confused, I let her roam. I'm so sorry. I gave Rosie a piece of my mind. Kenneth apologized when he returned from work. It's okay. We can't leave a small child alone. I understand. It's unclear what Stephanie thought of her father, but she quietly read her book. A very well-behaved, quiet girl. That was her first impression. Odd for a first grader not to miss her mother after a few hours, yet she said nothing until Kenneth got home. Want some snacks? Or, how about watching some anime? I tried to engage her. Don't worry about me. But all I got was, do you enjoy school? What's your favorite food? When I asked. Nothing in particular, she simply replied. Eventually, we both fell silent. It was incredibly awkward. That woman, she's off on a week-long trip with her new boyfriend, not even thinking about where to leave the child. It's just terrible. How did she handle these situations before? Probably our recent accidental meeting made her think she found the perfect place to leave Stephanie. Her parents are long gone, Kenneth murmured softly, filling the air with a sense of helplessness. For a week, Stephanie remained a good girl. You might think that's good, right? No, I think it's not good at all. She's a child, right? Still a first grader. Isn't this the age to be a bit troublesome? In the end, she stayed good, and the week ended with an awkward silence. Then the day came for Kenneth's ex-wife to pick her up. On that Sunday morning, Stephanie seemed unusually restless. Mommy, is she coming? She's still a child, missing her mother. Just as I was thinking this. What? You said your wife was there, right? Listen, my wife is pregnant and can't manage everything. You know that, right? Think about Stephanie's feelings, waiting eagerly for you. Kenneth's angry voice echoed. Stephanie looked out the darkening window with sad eyes. Her mother didn't come to pick her up at the agreed time. When Kenneth called her, she must have said something came up. Kenneth was furious. No pickup time for Stephanie today. Keep your promises! It's cruel, isn't it? Hey! Hey! You're kidding me! She hung up. Kenneth stood stunned after being abruptly cut off. Stephanie, how do I explain this? As I reached to touch her shoulder, she slapped my hand away. Stephanie? It's fine. What? It's fine! I'm just an unwanted child anyway. Stephanie, wait. Mommy always does this. Always choosing men over me. Always coming home late. Never cooking. Always just fast food from the grocery store. Just bread for school trips. Never coming to classroom observations. And she won't come to the upcoming sports day either. Stephanie. Tears overflowed her eyes. Am I unwanted? Am I just a nuisance to Mommy? I kept my promise. I was good. But Mommy. Stephanie. Unable to hear more, I hugged her tightly. At that moment, he probably couldn't hold back anymore. Stephanie burst into tears. She must have been holding back all this while, believing that being good would make her mother care. There were no unnatural injuries or shabby clothes on Stephanie. Her mother provided care, in a sense. But what a young child needs most is love. A tight hug, a gentle stroke on the head, to be told, I love you, you're precious. That's what she never received from her mother. Stephanie! Kenneth couldn't help but embrace her too. Dad! Their relationship had been awkward all week. A father and daughter, connected by blood, looking alike, but between them lay a thick wall, built over the long months of not being able to meet. However, the moment Kenneth hugged Stephanie, it felt like the wall between them crumbled. For a while, the three of us continued to embrace and cry. Eventually, her mother came to pick her up, but not until another week had passed. A month after Stephanie returned to her previous life with her mother, I want to take Stephanie back. Kenneth spoke to me with a serious expression. It's okay, I immediately replied. Are you sure about deciding so quickly? What are you talking about? I've thought a lot over this month. If you hadn't brought it up, I would have suggested it. Really? Yes. After all, Stephanie is your daughter. Your beloved daughter. And she's going to be the big sister to our baby. I rubbed my swollen belly. At that moment, as if agreeing, the baby inside kicked. Overwhelmed with happiness, I looked at Kenneth. She needs a family. A family that loves her. Not just someone who lives with her and feeds her. She needs a real family. Emily, let's go get her. Our precious Stephanie. Thank you. Honestly, I still don't feel like Stephanie is my daughter, but she must feel the same. To her, that woman is her only mother, and she can't see me as a parent. That's okay. Better than leaving her with that woman. I can't bear to see her cry like that again. It doesn't have to be a mother-daughter relationship. Family doesn't have to be just that. That's what I want to believe. But we shouldn't force her. We need to talk to Stephanie first and understand her feelings. Yes, her feelings are what matter most. Thank you. It's something I can't do. Dad, you should do it. Of course. I'll also consult a lawyer to make sure we can get custody without any issues. Please do. And so, we began preparing to welcome Stephanie. But things moved unexpectedly fast. Starting with Stephanie's sudden appearance at our house. One day, returning from a baby checkup, I found someone sitting in front of our house. It was Stephanie. What happened? Mommy? She burst into tears. Her hands were incredibly cold. How long had she been sitting there? Seeing Kenneth rush home early after my call, she cried again. After she cried herself to sleep, Kenneth called Rosie. What? You don't want her anymore? What does that mean? Rosie's voice came through Kenneth's phone on speaker mode. So my current boyfriend doesn't like kids. I can't keep her here. Just don't let the man into the house. He wants to live together, but I can't just abandon Stephanie, right? I don't want to be accused of being cruel to my child. Leaving her outside our house is cruel enough. What can I do? I just delivered her to her father's house. She's your Stephanie, you raise her. Fine. I get it. I'll raise Stephanie with all my love. She'll never go back to you. Is that what you want? That's what I'm saying. Oh, and I can't pay child support. I have no income. I don't expect anything from you. I'll see a lawyer tomorrow to start the process of changing custody, so make sure you cooperate. Okay. My boyfriend is calling. Bye! With a flippant reply, she ended the call. A long silence followed, broken only by Kenneth's deep sigh. I'm sorry. Don't apologize to me. Right, I'll check on Stephanie. Please stay with her. Emily? Yes? Thank you. I returned Kenneth's tired smile with my own. I didn't know what would happen, but just like the child in my belly, I was determined to protect Stephanie too. That decision, however, didn't make the sudden start of parenting easy. I hate this. I don't want it. I won't eat it. Don't talk to me. The complete opposite of her previous visit, Stephanie was now a difficult child. Probably due to the anxiety of being away from her mother. She needed to vent her feelings. I endured patiently. You can't throw things just because you hate them. Everything has life. You won't grow if you don't eat. You can't communicate if you just keep to yourself. Tell me about yourself, Stephanie. Gradually, as I continued to interact without faltering, her attitude began to change. As my due date approached and I was rubbing my growing belly, Stephanie hesitantly came closer. Seeming curious about my belly, I asked her, Do you want to touch it? Can I? Of course. Just gently. Yes. With blushing cheeks, Stephanie gently touched my belly. At that moment, ah! The baby kicked. It's saying it can't wait to play with you. Did it kick because I touched? Is the baby mad at me? No, not at all. It's saying it's excited to have you as a big sister. Big sister? Yes, Stephanie, you are this baby's big sister. Really? I'm a big sister. Although she wasn't blood related to me, she indeed was the baby's big sister. That thought felt strange to both of us, and we shared a smile. It was the first time she truly smiled from her heart. Soon after, our son, Theo, was born. As a first-time mother, I was extremely cautious with the newborn. Kenneth, too, was gingerly holding the baby, his touch hesitant after so long. Stephanie was astonished by the presence of a baby, a brother, and the innocent face of the sleeping infant. Our strange relationship, no doubt, looked like a real family to anyone. Over 10 years have passed since we welcomed Stephanie into our family. Now, close to graduating high school, Stephanie has finally grown out of her rebellious phase. These days, it's Theo who's more troublesome. One day, Kenneth received a call from Rosie, his ex-wife, after more than a decade of estrangement. What could it be? I was worried. After the call, Kenneth summoned Stephanie and me to the living room. Rosie wants to see Stephanie. What? Why now? Apparently, Rosie is alone now. She must be lonely. Always so selfish. Kenneth spat out angrily, raw emotion in his voice. I felt the same. After all these years of ignoring Stephanie, not even trying to see her, but the decision to meet or not was Stephanie's. Kenneth and I looked at her. Stephanie, it's your decision. To Kenneth's question. I want to see Mommy, she said. I see. But just to meet. I don't want to live with her. I momentarily thought she couldn't forget her biological mother, but her next words surprised me. My place is here, with Dad, Emily, and Theo. Here. Only. Stephanie. But still, Mommy is Mommy. Please understand my desire to see her. Of course. She has grown up, become an adult. I was moved to tears by her ability to express her feelings so clearly. Stephanie calls me by my name. I'd be lying if I said it didn't bother me, but I don't wish for her to call me anything else. In any form, we are a family. That was enough for me. And then, Stephanie went to meet Rosie. She planned to stay for a few days during the long weekend. I was worried. What if meeting Rosie made her feel that she preferred her real mother? What if she wanted to live with her? I had no right to stop her, but I feared Stephanie might get hurt. My only wish was that she wouldn't be hurt, or end up in tears. But Stephanie came back to our house. She returned the same day, even though she was supposed to stay over. What happened? Kenneth and I were surprised. She told us, I met Mommy. We talked about a lot. Her conversation with Rosie went like this. You've grown so much. Well, it's been over 10 years. What will you do after graduating high school? I'm going to college. Wow. Then you'll get a good job, won't you? I've decided what I want to do, and I'll work hard to achieve it. Amazing. Just like my daughter. Stephanie gave a wry smile, but Rosie didn't notice. You must have been uncomfortable living with a woman who's not your real parent. That's not true. Emily was very kind. The packed lunches for school trips were delicious. We even ran in the parents' relay at the sports day. She always came to classroom observations. It must be nice to have so much free time. Rosie laughed mockingly, and Stephanie couldn't overlook it. That's not fair. You never did anything for me. Mommy was very busy. You weren't working, were you? Well, I managed the child support from Dad. Huh? That stopped when you went to live with Dad. I've been struggling. And now I don't have a boyfriend, so I'm totally out of money. But if you live with me, it'll be fine. Huh? If you take up part-time jobs, we'll manage. You can work hard, right? What are you saying? I'm not living with you. Stephanie said with quiet anger. I came today to put an end to things. I've always wanted to tell you something. What is it? Thank you for raising me until elementary school. So you're going to repay the favor? Wait, listen to the whole story. And thank you for leaving me with Dad and Emily. They loved me very much. Emily gave me the love you never did. An overflowing love. That? Rosie was speechless, her body rigid. Family can be formed without blood ties. That's what I learned. My family is only those people. Mommy is mommy, but not family. I wanted to say goodbye properly. Goodbye, Mommy. I won't see you again. Wait! What about my life? That's not my concern. find another boyfriend? Sorry, I'm really sorry. If you resent me for the past, I apologize. So, no need to apologize. I don't resent you. I'm thankful for letting me meet my current family. So that? Stephanie shook off Rosie's begging arms, smiled again, and said, "Goodbye." So, she parted from her mother. Is that okay? Yes, I intended to do that from the start. I won't meet her again. Didn't I say? My place is here. My family is everyone here. Dad, Theo, and Mom. Huh? I was momentarily confused by what she called me. Surprised, Stephanie. Making a funny face, she said with a laugh. What did you just say? Mommy is Mommy. Dad is Dad. Theo is my brother. And Emily is Mom. Right? Her cheeks flushed with a shy blush. Mom, Stephanie repeated, and I couldn't hold back anymore. Stephanie! Wow! She looked puzzled as she embraced me, tears streaming down my face. Really, Mom always cries so easily, she said, laughing. After that, the whereabouts of that woman who fell into debt remained unknown. Our family's connection with her was completely severed. Hey Stephanie, you forgot your lunch money? Oh no, I have a part-time job and we'll be home late today. Call me when you get to the station. I'll come pick you up. No need for that. It is necessary. It's dangerous. Alright, I understand. You worry too much. What kind of mom wouldn't worry about her daughter? Stephanie, now a university student, seems busy, but happy with her student life. Her constant smiles make me happy too. I'm off then, Mom! She waves as she leaves. I too smile and wave back, wishing happiness for our family today as well.